Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.
The soft, almost imperceptible hiss of the hydraulic hinges on the limousine door was the only sound that marked Drew Kane's exit from the vehicle. He stood for a moment on the manicured gravel of the driveway, the sprawling, modern silhouette of the Quartermain mansion looming before him. It was a sight that should have filled him with a sense of triumphant homecoming, a testament to survival against impossible odds. He had faced down mercenaries, navigated corporate espionage, and endured a captivity that had stolen years from his life. Yet, as he adjusted the cuff of his impeccably tailored suit jacket, a cold, leaden dread settled in the pit of his stomach. It had nothing to do with the business meeting he was about to have with Michael Corinthos and Ned Ashton, and everything to do with the woman he had left sleeping in his penthouse apartment just an hour before. Willow Tate. The name itself was a balm to his soul, a melody that had played in his mind during the darkest of his days. Her kindness had been his anchor, her quiet strength his sanctuary. What had started as a shared, unspoken understanding of life's fragility had blossomed into something profound, a love that felt like his first true breath after being submerged for too long. He had held her last night, her head on his chest, her breathing soft and even, and he had believed, with a fool's certainty, that he had finally found a harbor safe from the storms of Port Charles. He had been so careful, so meticulous, in building this new life, brick by brick. He had convinced himself that the foundation was solid, that the past was a country he need never revisit. Inside the opulent study, the air smelled of old leather, fine bourbon, and the faint, citrusy note of Michael's cologne. The meeting was, on the surface, a straightforward discussion about the future of Aurora Media. Drew, with his military strategic mind, laid out his vision for a new philanthropic arm, one that would support veterans and their families. Michael, ever the shrewd businessman, nodded along, seeing the potential for positive PR, while Ned debated the financial logistics. The conversation was civil, productive even. But Drew's focus was fractured. A sliver of his attention remained tethered to his phone, lying screen up on the polished mahogany table. He was waiting for a text from Willow, a simple "good morning, my love," that would reaffirm the reality he so desperately clung to. It never came. Instead, his phone buzzed with a different, more jarring vibration. A news alert from a financial blog he followed. The headline was a punch to the gut: SEC launches informal inquiry into deception mining, cites anomalous trades pre-merger. His blood ran cold. Deception mining. The name was a ghost from a life he thought he'd buried. It was the company he and his brother, Jason Morgan, had been involved with years ago, a venture that had become tangled in the town's perpetual web of power struggles. The article was vague, as these initial reports always are, but it mentioned a series of highly profitable, suspiciously timed stock trades made through a series of offshore shell corporations in the weeks leading up to a major merger announcement. Trades that had netted someone millions. A cold sweat broke out on the back of his neck. He knew, with a chilling, instinctual certainty, that this was not a random occurrence. This was a trap, and the bait had been set with his name on it. He made a hasty excuse to a confused Michael and Ned, his voice tight, and practically fled the mansion. The dread that had been a dull ache in the driveway was now a screaming siren in his mind. He tried Willow's phone. It went straight to voicemail. He called again. And again. The cheerful, recorded message of her voice felt like a mockery. He found her not at their penthouse, but at Kelly's. She was sitting in a booth, a full cup of coffee cooling in front of her, untouched. She wasn't crying. That was the first thing that struck him. He had expected tears, anger, confusion. Instead, her face was a mask of pale, still calm. It was the terrifying tranquility of a sea after a storm has passed, leaving only wreckage in its wake. "Willow," he breathed, sliding into the booth opposite her. "My God, I've been calling you. Have you seen this nonsense online?" Her eyes, usually so warm and filled with light, lifted to meet his. They were flat, like chips of green glass. "Nonsense," she repeated, her voice dangerously quiet. "Yes. It's some baseless rumor, a hit piece. You know how this town is. Someone is trying to sabotage me, to sabotage Aurora." He reached for her hand, but she withdrew it as if his touch were acid. It's not a rumor, Drew. She reached into her bag and pulled out a thin manila folder. She didn't open it. She simply placed it on the table between them, a silent, damning accusation. The trades. The account numbers. The dates. It's all there. His heart hammered against his ribs. Where did you get that? Willow, that's fabricated. Someone sent that to you? Who? It doesn't matter who, she said, her voice gaining a sharp, brittle edge. What matters is that it's true. I had a friend at the SEC from my old life in finance. I called in a favor. I had them verify it. The money trail leads back to a holding company that you control. A company you never told me about. Kane Strategic Holdings, Grand Cayman. Sounds very impressive. The world tilted on its axis. Kane Strategic Holdings. It was a relic, a corporate shell he'd used for minor, legitimate investments years ago, long before the hostage crisis, long before he had become the man he was today. He had all but forgotten it existed. Willow, that company is dormant. I haven't touched it in years. I swear to you, I have no idea what this is about. The plea in his voice was raw, desperate. Stop lying to me. The calm shattered. Her voice was a low, venomous hiss, carrying across the quiet diner. A few heads turned. The trades were made 3 months ago, Drew. 3 months ago, you were sitting right here, in this very booth, telling me how much you valued honesty. You were holding my hands, telling me that after everything we'd been through, we would always have the truth between us. And all the while, you were engaging in illegal insider trading. You were risking everything, your reputation, Aurora, our future, for what? A few $1 million? Did you think you needed more money to be worthy of a quartermain? Of me? The accusation was so far from the truth it was dizzying. No! God, no, Willow. It wasn't me. You have to believe me. I would never. Believe you? She let out a short, harsh laugh that held no humor. How can I ever believe anything you say again? I let you in. I trusted you with everything. My fears about my health, my struggles with my mother, my heart. I thought you were different. I thought you were the one good, honorable man in a town full of liars and criminals. But you're the worst of them all, Drew. Because you made me believe it. She stood up, her movements stiff and deliberate. She looked down at him, and in her eyes, he saw the love they had shared being systematically dismantled, brick by brick, replaced by a cold, hard hatred. The worst part, she whispered, her voice trembling with the force of her emotion, is that you did this after you knew about the cancer. You did this while I was going through treatments, while I was fighting for my life, while I looked to you for strength. You were my rock, and the whole time, you were a lie. A fraudulent, criminal lie. She turned and walked away, leaving the folder on the table. She didn't look back. Drew sat there, paralyzed, the truth of her words, or rather, the truth of her perception, washing over him in a sickening wave. She was right about the timeline. She was right about the betrayal. She just had the wrong perpetrator. The next 48 hours were a blur of frantic activity and deepening despair. Drew hired the best lawyers in the state. He met with investigators, his jaw clenched, repeating his denial over and over. He pulled every financial record he could find, tracing the labyrinthine paths of his own corporate history. And slowly, painstakingly, a horrifying picture began to emerge. The digital footprints were masterfully laid, a work of criminal artistry. They pointed to a security breach, a sophisticated hack that had compromised his old corporate identities. But the hacker had been a ghost, their tracks covered by layers of encryption and false leads that vanished into the digital ether. The person who had orchestrated this wasn't just trying to ruin him financially or legally. They were targeting him personally, surgically. They had known exactly when to strike, when he was at his most vulnerable, when he had the most to lose. They had known about his relationship with Willow, the depth of her moral compass, and they had calculated that this particular crime, this specific betrayal of trust, would be the one thing she could never forgive. And they were right. He tried to see her again. He went to her mother's house, to the hospital where she volunteered, even to the park where they used to walk. She was a ghost, always just out of reach. Her friends, like Sasha Gilmore and Harrison Chase, looked at him with a mixture of pity and cold disapproval. The story had spread through Port Charles like wildfire. Drew Kane, the decorated veteran, the philanthropist, was just another corrupt businessman. The court of public opinion had rendered its verdict, and it was guilty. Willow, meanwhile, was a study in cold transformation. The gentle, compassionate woman was gone, replaced by a figure of grim resolve. She moved out of the penthouse while he was at a lawyer's meeting, taking only her clothes and a few personal items. She left behind the jewelry he'd given her, the books they'd read together, the framed photo of them from the hospital charity gala. It was a clean, brutal severance. She didn't scream or cry in public. She held her head high, her posture rigid, her eyes dry. But those who knew her well could see the devastation beneath the ice, the weight loss, the shadows under her eyes, the way her hands would sometimes tremble before she clenched them into fists. It was 2 weeks after the news broke when the final piece of the puzzle fell into place for Drew. His head of cybersecurity, a brilliant, paranoid young woman named Kylie, finally broke through one of the Ghost's digital firewalls. It wasn't much, a single, encrypted server located in Switzerland, accessed by a user with the codename Sphinx. But attached to that user file was a single, seemingly innocuous piece of metadata, a timestamp from a login that correlated perfectly with the initial stock purchase. And the geographical ping for that login wasn't from some remote hacker den. It was from Port Charles. More specifically, it was from a public Wi-Fi signal a block away from the Metro Court Hotel. The realization was like a key turning in a rusty lock. It wasn't a random business rival. It wasn't a foreign entity. This was personal. This was someone who knew him, who hated him, and who had the technical skill and the pathological patience to destroy him. The list of people who fit that description was short. And at the very top of it was a name he had tried, and failed, to forget. Cyrus Renaud. Renaud was in prison, serving a lengthy sentence for a litany of crimes, but his reach was long, and his thirst for vengeance was legendary. Drew had been instrumental, albeit indirectly, in the operation that had led to his latest incarceration. It made a sick kind of sense. Renaud couldn't touch him physically from behind bars, so he was destroying his life from the inside out, using the system Drew respected as his weapon. He was targeting the woman he loved as his instrument of torture. It was a masterpiece of psychological warfare. Armed with this fragile new lead, a flicker of hope ignited within Drew. He could prove it. He could trace this back to Renaud, expose the plot, clear his name, and beg for Willow's forgiveness. He just needed time. He just needed her to wait. He finally managed to corner her outside of General Hospital. She was leaving a follow-up appointment with her oncologist, and the sight of her, looking so fragile yet so fiercely strong, stole the breath from his lungs. "Willow, please. 5 minutes. That's all I ask." She tried to brush past him. "We have nothing to say to each other, Drew." "I know who did this," he said, his voice low and urgent. "It was Cyrus Renaud. He set me up. My tech team found a trail. It's thin, but it's there. I just need a little more time to prove it." She stopped, turning to face him fully. The afternoon sun caught the gold in her hair, but it couldn't warm the frigid contempt in her eyes. "Cyrus Renaud," she repeated, her voice dripping with disdain. "You're blaming a man who's been in prison for over a year? How convenient. How pathetic." "It's the truth," he insisted, his control fraying. "He has the resources, the motive. He's doing this to destroy me because I helped put him away. Please, Willow, you have to believe me. I love you. I would never, ever betray you like this." For a fraction of a second, he thought he saw a crack in her armor, a flicker of the woman who had loved him. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by something even harder. Love, she said, the word a weapon. You don't know the meaning of the word. Love is built on trust. And you shattered that. You took the most vulnerable time of my life and you made a mockery of it. You think proving some convoluted conspiracy theory will change what you did? It won't. The trades happened. The money went into your account. The SEC is investigating you. My trust in you is gone. That is the only reality that matters. She took a step closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that was all the more terrifying for its intensity. You want to talk about revenge, Drew? You think Cyrus Renaud is capable of it? You have no idea. You took my heart, you took my faith, and you ground it into dust for profit. You looked me in the eye every single day and you lied. So you listen to me, and you listen well. You are going to lose everything. Aurora, your reputation, your freedom. I will be in the front row of that courtroom every single day, watching you go down for this. I will talk to every reporter, I will testify about your character, I will make sure that everyone in this city knows exactly the kind of man you are. I will dedicate every waking moment to making sure you pay for what you've done. Her eyes burned with a fire he had never seen before, a pure, undiluted fury that was both terrifying and mesmerizing. This isn't over, she vowed. This is just the beginning. I will destroy you, Drew Kane. I swear it on my life. She turned and walked away, a solitary figure moving with a purpose that was both tragic and formidable. Drew stood rooted to the spot, her words echoing in the silent, empty space she left behind. He had faced enemy fire, torture, and the abyss of despair. But he had never known true fear until this moment, watching the love of his life walk away, not with tears, but with a vow of vengeance etched into her very soul. The battle for his future was no longer just a legal one. It was a deeply personal war, and the woman he would have died for had just declared herself his most formidable enemy. The game was afoot, and the stakes were everything. Drew hadn't expected the storm that was coming. In his mind, what he'd done was necessary, strategic, even. He told himself that the choice he made was the only way to protect everyone he cared about. But Willow Corinthos wasn't buying any justification, not anymore. And she made that perfectly clear the moment she slammed the door of the Courtemain gatehouse behind her and stared him down with a fury he had never seen from her before. Willow, please, Drew started, stepping toward her, palms open. Just let me explain. No, Willow snapped, her voice shaking but sharp. You don't get to explain. Not this time. Not after what you did. Drew's shoulders dropped. He knew this wasn't going to go smoothly, but seeing Willow's eyes, usually soft, forgiving, now filled with anger and betrayal, cut deeper than he'd expected. I didn't have a choice. You had every choice, Willow fired back. And you still picked the one that hurt me the most. He swallowed hard. I was trying to protect you. By destroying the one thing I begged you not to touch? Willow's voice cracked. My trust? My peace? Michael's future? What exactly were you protecting, Drew? Drew closed his eyes for a moment. It was about Nina. Willow stiffened. Of course it was. She was threatening to go public with the SEC mess again, Drew said quietly. She had information that would tank Aurora, the Courtemains, and everything we've been working toward. I had to get ahead of her. So you leaked those documents? Willow asked, her voice rising. You gave her the ammunition so she'd owe you? You fed your enemy so she'd be in your debt? That's not what happened, Drew said, his own voice growing defensive. I had to manipulate the outcome or she would have gone scorched earth. Willow crossed her arms. You let my mother, someone who has done nothing but tear our family apart, walk away clean. Worse than clean. You gave her power. Again. Drew shook his head. I neutralized her. You empowered her, Willow snapped. And you did it behind my back. Michael walked in then, having heard enough to know trouble was brewing. Willow, I heard yelling. What's going? He stopped when he saw Drew. What's he doing here? Willow didn't take her eyes off Drew. Confessing. Michael's expression darkened. About what? Drew held up a hand. Michael, listen. No, Willow cut in. Tell him. Tell my husband what you did. Tell him how you helped Nina. Michael's jaw tightened. What did you do? Drew exhaled heavily. I sent Nina information to stop her from exposing what she had on us. I had to make a deal. Michael scoffed. A deal with Nina? Again? She cornered me, Drew said. It was either this or all of us go down with her. You made a deal with the devil, Michael muttered. And you didn't think to tell me or Willow? Because I knew you'd react like this. Drew said, raising his voice before catching himself. Willow stared at him, horrified. So you lied. Again. Drew rubbed his forehead. I didn't lie. I withheld information. That is lying, Willow said, voice cold. And I'm done making excuses for you. Michael grabbed Willow's hand protectively. You need to leave, Drew. Now. Drew looked between them desperately. I did it for family. You stopped being family the moment you chose Nina over us, Willow said. Those words hit him harder than anything else. He didn't even try to argue, just nodded once, silently, the weight of the moment sinking into his bones as he stepped out of the house. But what Drew didn't see was the look Willow gave Michael the second the door closed. It wasn't just anger. It wasn't just hurt. It was determination. Cold. Sharp. Vengeful. Willow wiped her face, though no tears had fallen. I'm done letting him walk all over us. I'm done giving him the benefit of the doubt. He wants to play games with my life? Fine. But I'm going to make sure he never plays again. Michael frowned. Willow, what are you saying? I'm saying, Willow said quietly, that Drew Kane just made an enemy out of the wrong person. Over the next few days, Drew tried to reach her, texts, calls, stopping by the hospital, but Willow ignored every attempt. She had bigger plans forming in her mind, and each hour she spent thinking made her resolve stronger. Meanwhile, Carly confronted Drew at Kelly's, slamming a folder down on the table. What is this? She demanded. Drew sighed. I don't have the energy. Well, get some, Carly snapped, sliding the documents toward him. Because Willow dropped this off. And she wants me to know everything you did. Drew's heart sank. She gave you the files? Oh, she didn't just give them, Carly said. She annotated them. She highlighted them. She color-coded them. Drew grimaced. I was trying to protect everyone. Carly leaned in. You did the one thing you swore you'd never do, you manipulated Willow's life to suit your agenda. She feels betrayed. And she has every right to. Drew clenched his jaw. I don't regret trying to stop Nina. You should regret how you did it, Carly countered. You should regret hurting Willow. Because she might forgive others easily, but not betrayal. Drew looked out the window, a sense of dread finally settling in. What is she planning? Carly shook her head. You don't want to find out. But Willow was already 3 steps ahead. She knew Drew's patterns, his loyalty streaks, his blind spots, his need to be the hero. She knew how to use all of it against him. A week later, Willow found him alone on the Metro Court rooftop. She approached with a calmness that unnerved him. Willow, he said cautiously. Thanks for meeting me. You wanted to talk, she said simply. So talk. I made a mistake, Drew began softly. I didn't mean to hurt you. You did, Willow replied. But that's done. Drew took a step closer. So you forgive me? Willow smiled. It wasn't warm. It wasn't kind. It was surgical. No, Drew. I don't forgive you. He felt the chill in her words. Then, why are you here? Because, Willow said, you need to know something. Drew swallowed. Know what? Willow leaned in slightly. I'm done being the girl who forgives everyone. I'm done being the peacemaker. You wanted to play politics with my life? You wanted to deceive me? To use Nina to threaten my family? I'm not letting that slide. Drew felt something heavy drop in his stomach. Willow, what are you going to do? She whispered, whatever it takes. Drew stared at her. Willow, please, don't do something you'll regret. Oh, Willow said, stepping back with a cold smile. I won't be the one regretting anything. From that day forward, Willow moved like a shadow. Quiet, strategic. But not invisible. She began speaking to people Drew trusted, Brooklyn, Chase, even Valentine, subtly weaving seeds of doubt. She used her position at the hospital to gather information Drew didn't think she could access. She used her newfound steel spine to push back against every attempt he made to regain control. Her revenge wasn't explosive. It was surgical. And Drew finally realized it the day Aurora investors suddenly began backing out of a major deal without warning. The day he found out someone had anonymously leaked his dealings with Nina to a key investor who despised corporate manipulation. The day he found himself blindsided on all sides. Drew stormed into the hospital where Willow was finishing a chart. You did this. Willow didn't look up. You'll have to be more specific. You sabotaged me, Drew hissed. You tanked the deal. Willow finally glanced at him, expression cool. No, Drew. You sabotaged yourself. I just shined a light on what you did. You're going to ruin everything, he snapped. No, Willow said, closing the file calmly. I'm going to make sure you never ruin anyone else again. He stared at her, stunned. You're really doing this. Actions have consequences, Willow said. You taught me that. He stepped closer, desperate. Willow, this is revenge. She met his gaze unflinchingly. Yes. It is. For a moment, neither spoke. Drew could feel the walls closing in. Willow could feel her power rising. And both knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. But Willow also knew one thing with absolute certainty. Drew Kane had underestimated her. And now? He would pay for it. Slowly. Absolutely. Irreversibly.